Mid-Year, Book 6 of 2920, The Last Year of the First Era by Karlovac Townway. 2nd of Mid-Year, 2920, Balmora Morrowind. The Imperial Army is gathered to the south, said Cassir. They are a 2-week march from Ald Luval and Lake Coronati, heavily armored. Oh shit. Vivek nodded. Ald Luval and its sister city on the other side of the lake, Ald Malak, were strategically important fortresses. He had been expecting a move against them for some time. His captain pulled down a map of the southwestern Morrowind from the wall and smoothed it out, fighting a gentle summer sea breeze wafting in from the open window. Damn it. They were heavily armored, you say? Asked the captain. Yes, sir, said Cassir. They were camped out near Bethel Grey in the Heartland, and I saw nothing but ebony, dwarven, and daedric armor, fine weaponry, and siege equipment. Jesus Christ, I mean, that's the heavily armored. I was thinking like steel plate, but no, that's heavily fucking armored. How about spellcasters and boats? Asked Vivek. A horde of battle mages, replied Cassir, but no boats. As heavily armored as they are, it will take them at least 2 weeks, like you said, to get from Bethel Grey to Lake Coronati. Vivek studied the map carefully. They'd be dragged down in the bogs if they had tried to circle around to Aldmarak from the north, so they must be planning to cross the straits here and take Ald Luval. Then they'd proceed around the lake to the east and take Aldmarak from the south. They'll be vulnerable along the straits, said the captain, provided we strike when they are more than halfway across and can't retreat back to the Heartland. Your intelligence has once again served us well, said Vivek, smiling to Cassir. We will beat back the Imperial aggressors yet again. Nice. 3rd Mid-Year, 2920, Bethel Grey Cyrodiil. Will you be returning back this way after your victory? Asked Lord Bethal. Prince Juliak barely paid the man any attention. He was focused on the army packing its camp. It was a cool morning in the forest, but there were no clouds. All the makings of a hot afternoon march, particularly in such heavy armor. If we return shortly, it will be because of defeat, said the prince. He could see Dawn in the meadow, the potentate Versidue Shay paying his lordship's steward for the use of the village's food, wine, and horse. And army was an expensive thing for Certes. My prince, said the Lord Bethal with concern, is your army beginning a march due east? That will just lead you to the shores of Lake Coronati. You want to go southeast to get to the straits. You just make certain your merchants get their share of our gold, said the prince with a grin. Let me worry about my army's direction. 16th of Mid-Year, 2920, Lake Coronati Morrowind. Vivek stared across the blue expanse of the lake, seeing his reflection and the reflection of his army in the cool blue waters. What he did not see was the Imperial Army's reflection. They must have reached the straits by now, bearing any mishaps in the forest. Tall, feather-thin lake trees blocked much of his view of the straits. But an army, particularly one clad in slow-moving heavy armor, could not move invisibly silently. Let me see the map again, he called to his captain. Is there no other way they could approach? We have sentries posted in the swamps to the north, in case they're fool enough to go there and be bogged under, said the captain. We would at least hear about it, but there is no other way across the lake except through the straits. Vivek looked down again at his reflection, which seemed to be distorting his image, mocking him. Then he looked back on the map. Spy, said Vivek, calling Cassir over. When you said the army had a horde of battle mages, what made you so certain they were battle mages? They were wearing grey robes with mystical insignia on them, explained Cassir. I figured they were mages, and why else would such a vast number of travel with the army? They couldn't have all been healers. You fool, roared Vivek. They're mystics schooled in the art of alteration. They've cast a spell of water breathing on the entire army. Holy shit! That's badass. Vivek ran to a new vantage point where he could see the north. Across the lake, though it was but a small shadow on the horizon, they could see gouts of flame from the assault on Aldmarak. Vivek bellowed with fury, and his captain got to work at once, redirecting the army to circle the lake and defend the castle. Damn. Return to Dwynnon, said Vivek flatly to Cassir before he rode off to join the battle. Your services are no longer needed nor wanted. Dude, that's badass. I could just imagine the whole army just marching down into the lake and oh shit. Why not water walking instead of water breathing? Oh. I guess they were sneaky that way. It was already too late when the Morrowind army neared Aldmoroch. It had been taken by the Imperial army. That was smart. 19 mid-year 2920, the Imperial city Cyrodiil. The potentate arrived in the Imperial city amid great fanfare. The streets lined with men and women cheering him as the symbol of the taking of Aldmoroch. Truth be told, a greater number would have turned out had the prince returned, and the Versailles knew it. I get you, Satoru. Yeah, no, it's very cool. Still, it pleased him to no end. Never before had citizens of Tamriel cheered the arrival of an Akaviri into their land. The Emperor Raymond III greeted him with a warm embrace and then tore into the letter he had brought from the prince. I don't understand, he said at last, still joyous but equally confused. You went under the lake? Aldmoroch is a very well fortified fortress, explained the potentate. As I might add, the army of Morrowind has rediscovered now that they are on the outside. To take it, we had to attack by surprise and with our soldiery in the sturdiest of armor. By casting the spell that allowed us to breathe underwater, we were able to travel faster than Vivek would have guessed. The weight of the armor made less by the aquatic surroundings and attack from the waterbound west side of the fortress where their defenses were at their weakest. Brilliant, the Emperor crowded. That was so fucking... That's like the coolest tactic in war I've ever seen. Fucking water breathing. I never used that. You were a wondrous tactician, Versailles. If your fathers had been as good at this as you are, Tamriel would be Akaviri domain. The potentate had not planned to take credit for Prince Juliek's design, but on the Emperor's reference to his people's fiasco of an invasion 216 years ago, he made up his mind. He smiled modestly and soaked up the praise. Bitchin'. 21 mid-year 2920, Aldmoroch Morrowind. Savirin Shorrock slithered to the wall and watched through the arrow slit the Morrowind army retreating back to the forest land between the swamps and the castle grounds. It seems like the ideal opportunity to strike. Perhaps the forest could be burned and the army within them. Perhaps with Vivek in their enemies' hands, the army would allow them possession of Alduval as well. He suggested these ideas to the prince. What you seem to be forgetting, laughed Prince Juliek, is that I gave my word of no harm to the army or to their commanders during the truce negotiations. Do you not have honor during warfare on Akavir? My prince, I was born here in Tamriel. I have never been to my people's home. Well, that makes sense. But even so, your ways are strange to me. You expected no garter, and I gave you none when we fought in the Imperial Arena 5 months ago. That was a game, replied the prince, before nodding to his steward to let the Dunmer battle chief in. Juliek had never seen Vivek before, but he had heard he was a living god. What came before him was but a man, a powerfully built man, handsome, with an intelligent face, but a man nonetheless. The prince was pleased, a man he could speak with, but not a god. Greetings, my worthy adversary, said Vivek. We seem to be at an impasse. Valkyrie Chronicles? Ooh. Not necessarily, said the prince. You don't want to give us Morrowind, and I can't fault you for that. But I must have your coastline to protect the Empire from overseas aggressions, and certain key strategic border castles such as this one, as well as Ald Umbil, Tel Ulran, Ald Lambasi, and Tel Moth Rivra. And in return, asked Vivek. In return, laughed Sovereign Chorak, you forget we are the victors here, not you. In return, said Prince Juliek carefully, there will be no Imperial attacks on Morrowind, unless in return to an attack by you. You will be protected from invaders by the Imperial Navy, and your land may expand by taking certain estates in Blackmarsh, whichever you choose, provided they are not needed by the Empire. A reasonable offer, said Vivek after a pause. You must forgive me, I am unused to Cyrodiils who offer something in return for what they take. May I have a few days to decide? We will meet again in a week's time, said the prince, smiling. In the meantime, if your army provokes no attacks on mine, we are at peace. Vivek left the prince's chamber, feeling that Almalexia was right. The war was at an end. This prince would make an excellent emperor. The year is continued in Sun's Height. So what time is it? Yeah, I think 2 books a night is nice, because there's plenty of books. Oops. Just want to read the damn thing. Sun's Height, Book 7 of 2920, The Last Year of the First Era, by Karlovac Townway. The 4th of Sun's Height, 2920, The Imperial City, Cyrodiil. Emperor Ramon III and his potentate Vercingetorix took a stroll around the Imperial Gardens, studded with statuary and fountains. The North Gardens fit the Emperor's mood, as well as being the coolest acreage in the city during the heat of the summer tide. Austere tiered flower beds of blue and gray green towered all around them as they walked. Vivek has agreed to the prince's terms for peace, said Ramon. My son will be returning in 2 weeks' time. This is excellent news, said the potentate carefully. I hope the Dunmer will honor the terms. We might have asked for more, the fortress of Blackgate, for example, but I suppose the prince knows what is reasonable. He would not cripple the empire just for peace. I have been thinking lately of Regia and what caused her to plot against my life, said the emperor, pausing to admire a statue of the slave Queen Alicia before continuing. The only thing I can think of to account for it is that she admired my son too much. She may have loved me for my power and my personality, but he, after all, is young and handsome, and will one day inherit my throne. She must have thought that if I were dead, she could have an emperor who had both youth and power. The prince was in on this plot? Asked Vercingetorix. It was a difficult game to play, anticipating where the emperor's paranoia would strike next. Oh, I don't think so, said Ramon, smiling. No, my son loves me well. Are you aware that Kodra Raja's sister is an initiate of the Morwa Conservatorium in Hagith? Asked the potentate. Morwa? Asked the emperor. I've forgotten which god is that. Lusty fertility goddess of the Yokudans, replied the potentate, but not too lusty like Debella. Demure, but certainly sexual. I am through with lusty women, the empress. Regia, all too lusty, a lust for love leads to a lust for power. The emperor shrugged his shoulders. But a priestess in training with a certain healthy appetite sounds ideal. Now, what were you saying about the Black Gate? The throat's a little dry. There we go. 6 Sun's Height, 2920, Thurzo Fortress, Cyrodiil. Regia stood quietly, looking at the cold stone floor, while the emperor spoke. He had never before seen her so pale and joyless. She might at least be pleased that she was being freed, being returned to her homeland. Oh, that's nice. Why, if she left now, she could be in Hammerfell by the Merchants' Festival. Nothing he said seemed to register any reaction from her. A month and a half stay in Thurzo Fortress seemed to have killed her spirit. I was thinking, said the emperor at last, of having your younger sister Kodra up to the palace for a time. I think she would prefer it over the conservatorium in Hagith, don't you? Reaction at last. Regia looked at the emperor with animal hatred, flinging herself at him in a rage. Her fingernails had grown long since her imprisonment, and she raked them across his face, into his eyes. Ah, shit, she just fucked herself. He howled with pain, and his guards pulled her off, pummeling her with blows from the back of their swords, until she was knocked unconscious. A healer was called at once, but the Emperor Ron III had lost his right eye. Oh, shit. She's fucked now. Dumbass. She was free. Ugh. 23 Sun's Height, 2920, Balmora Morrowind. Vivek pulled himself from the water, feeling the heat of the day wash from his skin, taking a towel from one of his servants. Sothasil washed his old friend from the balcony. It looks like you've picked up a few more scars since I last saw you, said the sorcerer. Azura grant it that I have no more for a while, laughed Vivek. When did you arrive? A little over an hour ago, said Sothasil, walking down the stairs to the water's edge. Thought I was coming to end a war, but it seems you've done it without me. Yes, 80 years is long enough for ceaseless battle, replied Vivek, embracing Sothasil. We made concessions, but so did they. When the old emperor is dead, we may be entering a golden age. Prince Juliak is very wise for his age. Where is Almalexia? Collecting the Duke of Mournhold. She should be here tomorrow afternoon. The men were distracted at a sight from around the corner of the palace. A rider was approaching through the town, heading for the front steps. It was evident that the woman had been riding hard for some time. They met her in the study, where she burst in, breathing hard. "We have been betrayed," she gasped. "The Imperial Army has seized the Black Gate." Oh, shit. 21st Sun's Height, 2920 Balmora Morrowind. It was the first time in 17 years that the three members of the Morrowind Tribunal had met in the same place. Since Sothasil had left for Artaeum, all three wished that the circumstances of their reunion were different. From what we've learned, while the prince was returning to Cyrodiil to the south, a second Imperial army came down from the north, said Vivek to his stony-faced compatriots. It is reasonable to assume Juliek didn't know about the attack. But neither would it be unreasonable to suppose that he planned on being a distraction while the Emperor launched the attack on Blackgate, said Sothasil. This must be considered a break of the truce. Where is the Duke of Mournhold? Asked Vivek. I would hear his thoughts on this matter. He is meeting with the Night Mother in Tel Arun, said Almalexia quietly. I told him to wait until he had spoken with you, but he said that the matter had waited long enough. He would involve the Morag tongue in outside affairs? Vivek shook his head and looked to Sothasil. Please do what you can. Assassinations will only move us backwards. Is Morrowind Mordor / Gondor, depending on the age? Right. Please do what you can. Assassinations will only move us backwards. This matter must be settled with diplomacy or battle. 25 Sun's Height, 2920, Tel Arun Morrowind. I know, the Black Gate, right? Jesus. The Night Mother met Sothasil in her salon. Lit only by the moon, she was cruelly beautiful, dressed in a simple silk black robe, lounging across her divan. With a gesture, she dismissed her red-cloaked guards and offered the sorcerer some wine. You've only just missed your friend, the Duke, she whispered. She was very unhappy, but I think we will solve his problem for him. Did he hire the Morag tongue to assassinate the Emperor? Asked Sothasil. You're straightforward, aren't you? That's good. I love plain-speaking men. It saves us so much time. Of course I cannot discuss with you what the Duke and I talked about, she smiled. It would be bad for business. What if I were to offer you an equal amount of gold for you not to assassinate the Emperor? The Morag tongue murders for the glory of Mephala and for profit, she said, speaking into her glass of wine. We do not merely kill. That would be sacrilege. Once the Duke's gold has arrived in 3 days' time, we will do our end of the business, and I'm afraid we would not dream of entertaining a counteroffer. Though we are a business as well as a religious order, we do not bow to supply and demand, Sothasil. Okay. 27 Sun's Sight, 2920, the Inner Sea of Morrowind. Sothasil had been watching the waters for 2 days now, waiting for a particular vessel, and now he saw it. A heavy ship with the flag of Mournhold. The sorcerer took the air and intercepted it before it reached harbor. Oh shit, fucking flying around. A call of flame erupted over his figure, disguising his voice and form into that of a Daedra. Oh, damn. Abandon your ship, he bellowed, if you would not sink with it. Dude, this reminds me, okay, I hope all of you have seen fucking The Princess Bride. But when frickin' Andre the Giant, or Fezzik, puts on the cloak and lights on fire, and he's like, oh. It totally reminds me of that. In truth, Sothasil could have exploded the vessel with but a single ball of fire, but he chose to take his time, to give the crew a chance to dive off into the warm water. When he was certain there was no one living aboard, he focused his energy into a destructive wave that shook the air and water as it discharged. The ship and the Duke's payment to the Morag tongue sunk to the bottom of the inner sea. Night Mother, thought Sothasil, as he floated towards shore to alert the harbor master that some sailors were in need of rescue. Everyone bows to supply and demand. The years continued.